Good morning everyone! Have you ever received advice that actually was holding you back as a photographer? You may have been on the field, the light felt not right, the settings were not working out, maybe the place itself was just boring. Well, through my career as a photographer, I noticed that there are photography myths that keep being perpetuated that actually are holding us back from taking photos we love. So in this video today, I would like to share 4 photography myths and shatter them with you. So make sure you watch this video until the end, because at the end I'll share also a little bonus that on the field will make the whole difference. So now let's get right into it. So I just came back from a trip, and recently I had friends telling me that the place was boring and uninteresting to shoot and I should just take my car. Honestly, for a second I was like, oh, maybe I should. But then I thought about it a little bit and I was like, well, let's challenge that a little bit. And this is exactly the first photography myth that I would like for you to keep in mind. Those myths will hold us back as photographers. They're gonna make us photographers that stay in a box that someone else defined for us and won't make us happy. So that first myth is that a place is boring as a photographer. I believe that there is no such place as a boring place. There is just a place that you will look through different eyes, and each eye is trained differently and will look at a place differently. So if you're a photographer and you end up in a place that you think is boring, it's a small town, it's a small village, the first advice I can give you is to start looking differently. Maybe you've been in that place a million times. Imagine how you would feel being there, how you would see that place if you were some American tourist that came from the other side of America, had never been there, or a French tourist that just arrived there with his croissant, his baguette and a little glass of wine and was looking at its place. How would that person perceive that place? That will give you a change of perspective on how you can actually interact with the elements around you. Then my second advice will be to come back to that location at different times. Come for sunset, come for sunrise, come when it's maybe in winter, maybe in summer. Try to see how the place changes depending on the weather and what can you get out of it. Maybe you have a little pub or a little house and it's very misty. You can get some stories with someone coming in and out of buildings, but that may not be possible on a bright sunny day. But on that bright sunny day, in a few seconds, I will share a few tips that you can use in order to take photos that will be more engaging for yourself and also for the viewer. And last advice is going to be changing your gear. If you're always shooting at 14mm or 35mm, well then swap it. Start shooting at 14 or shoot at 70 or 200mm and try to see how you can perceive the location, the place you're in, completely differently. I really believe as a photographer, or talent is to be able to extract from a place as much beauty as possible and really share that beauty and share the story and share the essence of that place. And it may not always be easy to do, but this is also why we love photography. It's a real challenge. And remember, before we move on to the next myth, your story is key. Meaning, what are you trying to convey in your image? And is there something that the viewer will get kind of curious about, or wowed or surprised when looking at your photo? And remember, next time someone tells you a place is boring, you may tell them nicely that, well, this place may be boring for you, but let me see what beauty I can find here. And if you've been in that situation, or you're in a place, small village, 1,000 times and you're not sure how to shoot it again, let me know in the comments. And if you're reading the comments, maybe give a few pointers to that person to help them also find something different. The more point of views we have, the better. Myth number 2 is the light is too harsh. It's too direct. Well, there's no such thing. Let's get it out of the way. Light will always be how it is, right? Now, it's up to us to understand how it is and what we can do with it. Harsh light, direct light. I was in Los Angeles. I'm walking around, we have super harsh direct light. What can I do? Well, first, I could play with geometrical shapes. Why? Because we have harsh shadows that are clearly defined during those times. So that allowed me for graphical images with triangles of shadows and shapes and stuff like that. Those shadows can actually be used to lead towards the subject, which I absolutely love to do and use. Then second of all is that with harsh direct light, you can also use it to isolate the subject maybe more easily. Let's say your subject is walking on a plain background and everything's lit up evenly with harsh light, you will see your subject. I really encourage you when you are in the harsh direct light to play with those elements of direct light. You can use the light reflecting on the building to light up a subject. There is so many things that you can do with that. And if you're really not feeling good about it, just go in the shades, and that way you don't have that direct light anymore and you're just playing in the shadows with a nice encompassing and beautiful round light. So I hope all those visual examples gave you some ideas. Remember, there's never a light that is too harsh or too direct. It is up to you to use the mood that is present to create photos that you will love. So let me know in the comments if this one is big for you, or are you actually a direct light and harsh light lover. Now, before we move on to myth number 3, let's get something out of the way. If you don't know me, my name is Pierre T. Lambert. I'm a travel adventure photographer and the creator of the 30-day adventure to great photos, the step-by-step method to develop your photographer's eyes in order to take photos that you love, no matter what kind of gear you're using. And I'm sharing on this YouTube channel photography adventures and tutorials to help you take better photos. So subscribe if you want to progress with me, and make sure you leave a big thumbs up if you like this video. Now, myth number 3, you need better gear to take better photos. You've heard this one. Let me know right away. Now, I don't disagree fully with it. So hear out all the details, because there are some pieces of gears that are extremely important to have and others that I disagree. They're not gonna make our photography better. So first one, let's talk about the camera itself. Will a better camera make us take better photos? If you have any DSLR, any interchangeable lens system, I disagree that a better camera will make us take better photos. Cameras haven't changed that much in the past 10 years. This is a 9-year-old camera and it still rocks every single day. Now, lenses, on the other hand, will make a huge difference. Lenses will change how you perceive the world. Is it narrow? Is it tight? Is it super zoomed in? Is it macro way of seeing the world? So the lenses will have a big impact. The camera itself will have less of an impact unless you're going to very technical shoots like wildlife photography or high ISO photos. But remember, there's been incredible photos that have been taken 25, 50, 100 years ago, and even 2 years ago. So an incredible photo has nothing to do by itself with the gear. It more has to do with the skills of the photographer, which is what you want to be investing in rather than the gear. So this is what I tell anyone asking me to upgrade their camera. I'm asking them what kind of lenses they have, what kind of camera they have, and what they feel they want from a new camera, right? If they're just basically trying to get something that takes better photos, I will point them out to prime lenses first, okay? Try a prime lens, try a 50-1.8, 35-1.8, 1.4 depending on your budget, or 85-1.8, and just that will make a huge difference in their photography. Change your lens first, and then if you're still completely blocked for ISO, shutter speed, banding issues, or whatever, well then you may want to consider a camera change. And now let's move on to myth number 4. Myth number 4, never shoot against the light. What? Whoever said that? Honestly, this may be the worst advice anyone ever gave you. Shooting against the light may be a blessing in so many circumstances. Sure, if you shoot against the light, you're gonna lose in contrast and colors, depending on how you're shooting, if you have the light hitting directly into your lens, but you will get a certain softness, you will get warmth, you will get a rim light around your subject that will look like he has an aura, and in so many circumstances, this is what you want. I actually have a really good photographer friend, Emmett Sparling, that tells me that he will shoot as much as he can completely against the sun his portraits. And I agree with him. I actually made a whole dedicated video on how to use backlight for portraits. You can watch that video after, it's very good. But to recap, shooting backlit is important. Why? Because it allows you to light up your subject around, you will expose for the shadows, and you will get that warm soft light on your subject's face. On top of that, you can also play with putting the sun in the corners, and honestly, those are the portraits I prefer. Usually there's just something very vibrant that comes through it. And the lower the sun on the horizon when you shoot backlit, the warmer your images will be. Honestly, the ambience of backlit shoots are just something of its own. that I personally really love. So again, don't take any advice even from me and just like use it as a belief system. Simply go and test it out and see what works and what doesn't for you. Last one, and I said it's a bonus, but I think we can call it number 5. It is to protect your highlights. Wow, how many times have I heard protect your highlights? Don't blow out your background. Keep everything. Well, there's something to remember in photography, and that happened to me when I was on the streets in Los Angeles. There was no way I could have the information in the bottom part of my image and the sky at the same time. So I had to make choices, and my choice was like, do I expose for the sky or do I expose for the street? And in many circumstances, I'll give you a few examples of how it can actually help your image. Well, it's better to focus on our subject, right? And expose properly for the subject, and then we can forget about the background and maybe blow it out a little bit. Why? Because honestly, if there isn't anything to read in the background for your image and your subject is the main important thing, well, just keep it on the subject, right? Keep it simple, and less distraction, less information means something easier to read as a photographer. Now, let me throw in one more bonus for you on the field. If you're exposing your image and you feel that you need to underexpose a little bit, sometimes overexposing is not necessarily a bad thing. Why? Because in post-production, you can reduce those highlights a little bit and recover some information. I actually start shooting at plus 0.3, 0.7 or plus 1 exposure compensation, and then sometimes reduce it after, because I find that I get kind of a cleaner information in my dark sometimes, or it actually brings me closer to how I want my final image to look, even if that means that in the JPEG I have less information in the highlights. Since I'm shooting raw, I can recover those after. So don't worry too much on the field, especially because I have a free cheat sheet for you with my most used photography settings on the field with some tips. Grab it with the link in the description, and make sure you watch this video to learn how to measure light, and this video if you want to go on the field with me for a nice little shoot. Now, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. Don't get too tempted with all the gear that's coming around.